Hit air vests. Does Japan make good airbag vests? And should you get one?
As of now, nothing on this channel is sponsored. Everything was bought with our own money, and these are our own opinions. Buy at your own risk.
Welcome. Today we're talking about Hit Air. And again, it's not a sponsor, but I really like Hit Air. Not just as a product, but as a company. I have communicated with them a few times. They are just really nice people. It comes out of Nagoya, Japan. But why I specifically like Hit Air, and not necessarily just Hit Air, is the cord. There's a cord that detaches and releases the CO2 when you're in a crash. There are other companies that are using GPS style electronic ones, and I don't necessarily like that. With the GPS, it could lose signal, run out of batteries, you could forget to charge it. Let's say you don't forget to charge it and the GPS works fine. You're also on a long road trip. You got to find a way to keep that charged, and you've got to charge it multiple times. Like I did a multi-month road trip a while back. I don't know if I could have done it with an electronic airbag vest as safely as with a standard one. To be fair, I didn't know about airbag vests back then, nor could I afford one, so I just did without. But as far as Hit Air specifically, I gotta say they're pretty cheap here in Japan. You know, that makes sense. The American ones are cheaper in the States, the European ones are cheaper in Europe usually. Here in Japan, we bought it for a little over $200. It's gone up to closer to the $300 or $400 mark because of popularity and demand, but still, that's much cheaper than other groups like Hellet. And saying that it's made in Japan and I bought it in Japan, it does feel like Japanese quality. It doesn't feel like it's going to wear out. It doesn't feel like it's going to break down. It doesn't feel like it's going to fail you when the time is needed. Now, I have what I would call the vest form. It's kind of like, imagine a cool Harley Davidson vest made out of synthetic fabrics and actually protects you pretty well in a crash, but it is essentially something that could be worn as a standalone vest, and it's got pockets and everything, high strength material. It has the airbag built in. Now, who is this for, maybe? If you see the people that ride in t-shirts, I kind of understand that. If you're in heavy traffic, it's really hot, you want to wear just a t-shirt, this is not necessarily a replacement to a jacket, and you probably should be wearing a jacket, but if you want all the warmth and functionality of just a t-shirt, this might be really good for you. And it's not as funny looking as some of the other vests. We'll get into that in a moment, but it doesn't look weird. It looks like you're wearing some cool body armor, but with ridiculous levels of protection according to Hit Air. And with that being said, it's not perfect. There are some issues I've had with it. The first one being the collar around the neck. If you do let it touch bare skin, it's all made of the same material from what I can tell, and it's very rough, so it will scratch your neck a bit. This one has broken in a bit, and I've had it for around a year now, so I don't really notice. And that's the thing. I don't know if I stopped noticing, or if it stopped scratching, or if I subconsciously wear my t-shirt in a different way on those rare days where I'm wearing just this. As for this specific one, it is heavily ventilated. It's extremely well ventilated, not quite as well vented as my Climb air induction jacket, but that is the thing. When you're wearing a t-shirt and your jacket and this, even if it's all super ventilated mesh, an extra layer is an extra layer. So when it gets above 30 degrees Celsius, it gets pretty warm. It's not unwearable as long as you're moving, but let's pretend you're riding in heavy traffic like I do in Tokyo. It can be very difficult to wear a shirt plus a jacket plus this vest when it hits around 35 Celsius, which again is relatively normal here in Japan. One other problem with this specific vest is that it makes you feel safe enough and functional enough to ride in just a t-shirt. You might not be the person who wears a t-shirt only when riding because of safety, but when it comes to heat and something like this, you might make that choice. So it's not a negative of the product, it's more a negative of the human mind. If you're like me, you will possibly choose to be t-shirt only and this. It'll most likely save your life. It won't necessarily do any good for your arms. Now, as for the other choices that I kind of referenced a little bit earlier, my wife has the kind that I would kind of say is the high function flotation device. Imagine you're in a boat and you have to wear a flotation device. I will say they fit over jackets much better, and if you're already wearing motorcycle jackets and you get a good color match, it's almost not noticeable. Now, the one she got specifically, which she also got quite intentionally, is the one with the mini reflectors built in, which is pretty cool because it doesn't have the Scotch-Lite tape like my vest does or my Climb motorcycle gear does, but what it does have is a ton of little reflectors, so the whole thing turns into a super bright light in headlights, and it's quite amazing. When she's riding around just trying to look like a cool person, she gets to be all black everything, but as soon as headlights are on her at night, she's extremely visible and the center of attention suspension for more than just meat. And again, the advantage to that one, because I've borrowed it a few times, when you wear that one over a jacket, it makes really minimal difference to the ventilation. So you still get all the air you need for the most part. You still have that rubber or plastic or whatever material they're using for the actual airbag inside. So it's not like you're wearing a t-shirt. It has a little bit of block, but it's so small that the trade-off is really negligible. And again, this one, you could wear it as a standalone vest with a t-shirt. It will have less abrasion protection just because it has less surface area. Not that mine does anything for arms either, but I have seen people who do it. It does happen. Again, Tokyo gets very hot. Osaka's hotter. Fashion-wise, if you do wear it as a standalone with your t-shirt, it will look like a high-vis vest that construction workers wear. I wear something like that when I'm cycling. Tokyo cycling paths are shared with the cars. I want to make sure they see me as they run me over. There are downsides to airbag vests themselves, not just Hit Air, but all of them. And it's something that you need to think about before you get it. How much do you think this guy paid to import a Mustang to Japan? The tax is probably worth as much as the car. The biggest part about an airbag vest that I think is quite a concern for some people, and it has changed me quite significantly forever, it makes you a bit paranoid. What I mean is, when you're wearing it, you feel bulletproof. Once you've added the safety feature that is an airbag vest, you suddenly realize, boy, riding without this, I don't want to break my spine or shatter my ribs or crush my internal organs or break my neck. There is the price. It's an extra piece of gear. I have not crashed in this yet. Neither has my wife. I can't personally say how well it works in a crash, but I have complete confidence in it. With that being said, more than 98% of all my rides since I've gotten this, I have not ridden without it. And you could argue it also makes you ride worse. I'm obviously not riding that bad right now, but what you have to think about is when you have that extra protection, you do ride like a bit more of a jerk. When I was younger, I just had the jacket, gloves, whatever, the budget stuff. And when I would ride in a t-shirt only, and maybe even shorts, I'm not going to try to drag my knee. When I did have that gear on, I would push the limits. And now that I have even more protection, it could be argued that psychologically it would make someone push their limits even further. The big thing is, knowing everything I know, would I buy it again? The only reason I would buy it again is because I've had the misfortune of testing it, and I've ripped it up, possibly ripped up my jacket and everything. If I had ruined it, I would get another Hit Air product, but assume I ruined the vest and my Climb motorcycle jacket, I would actually not get a vest. I would get one of their jackets. They have a highly vented jacket. It is a mesh jacket, but the vest is built in. That way, I don't have the extra layer. I don't have the excuse to not use it. And so if I'm going to use the vest, I got to use the jacket. If I'm going to use the jacket, I got to use the vest. One less step to putting it on. It looks less bulky. And I know my wife likes the idea of that's what I would go towards. Like I do already now, when you have a vented mesh jacket, you can just put a winter layer over it. Like you can put a raincoat, or I wear a snowmobile suit over it. It's a multi-seasonal thing. It's a great thing. But even if you don't want to wear that extra layer, they actually have a waterproof version of it that's relatively vented. It has a hanging layer, and that's one criticism. It's waterproof with the layer in, so the trick is leave the layer. But I like laminated jackets. I've been a bit too spoiled by brands like Climb. When you have a inner layer, the outside can get wet and heavy and cold. Imagine going down the road with a wetted out jacket, even though it's not actually touching you directly because of the waterproof inner liner. It's still a lot of extra weight. Going out this morning where it was -1 when I started at highway speeds with highway winds, that's a kind of cold that I'm just not comfortable with. It seems to be a very waterproof jacket, but that's what I would do. If I had to replace my gear, I would get a built-in airbag vest. But that's it for this video, and I just want to say, look right up here in the corner. If there's a card popping up, that's me crash testing it. If there's no card, I still haven't crash tested it. I hope I never test it. Like a good helmet, you hope it was a waste of money. So I'll say thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my playlist for more on riding gear, mods, bikes, reviews, and Japan on its own.